Hey everybody, you're watching Bull Boom Bear Bust. My name is JJ, and it is April 19th, 2023. Welcome to the channel. Thank you for being here. We are headed into some perilous economic slash financial times. The news that's just coming out every day. I'm doing 2 reports a day now in many cases because there's so much new news coming out, and I just feel like I have to cover it, and I don't want to miss any of the important news. But a chart caught my eye earlier. There's so many things happening at once in our world right now, financially, economically, and the reason why I started this channel is because everyone is impacted by economics and finance. You know, people often ask me, how could you just talk about finances all the time? Well, it's not really finances. Finances are a means to survival now. Without finances, you're homeless, and it's too bad that it has to be that way. It's too bad that our lives are spent in this endless pursuit of money just to keep a roof over our head. And I know people that have well over $1 million in net worth, both clients and friends personally, well over $1 million net worth, and they're still unsure if they can just retire and relax and do the things they like to do, and go golf and do hobbies, because one, they're unsure that the cost of living is going to come down anytime soon. We see these rising interest rates haven't really done a lot for the cost of living, have they? Can you name many things that are cheaper now than they were last year? I can't think of many. Homes are a little bit cheaper, unless you have to finance them. And most people have to finance a home when they buy it. So actually, they're more expensive for most people, right? Cars are more expensive now. The prices actually came down a little bit for used vehicles, but most people have to finance a vehicle also, meaning they're more expensive for most people, right? So I can't think of many things that are cheaper than last year. If you're a cash buyer, of course, if you have that much money on the side, things are cheaper because you can pay cash. You don't have to worry about the high interest rates, but not much is cheaper than it was. And, people are very unsure of even $1 million in savings. Is it enough? And if you have family that depends on you, if you have kids, you're worried about where are they going to live when they get older? Are they going to be able to afford a home? Are homes ever going to become affordable again? Is the cost of living ever going to come down? We see the Fed now with very tiny interest rate hikes, which is a sign that they're approaching the end of the rate hikes, and they haven't really made much of a dent in inflation. They've slowed down the rate of inflation, but we haven't seen the cost of living come down for the most part. So it's pretty scary times. A lot of people are concerned. People that I know that have a lot of money on the side are still being very cautious and concerned about the future here of what's going on. We see a lot of chaos in cities right now. Just massive numbers of people breaking into stores, grabbing stuff. What's it going to be like when the economic collapse really hits full stride, right? And we're not far now away from it because the consumers are getting tapped out. Cost of living is not coming down. We see it every day in the news. I've got more layoffs to talk about today. Before we get to the layoffs, though, I saw a chart that really caught my eye. Let me put it up right here. And this has to do with central banks buying gold. If you look to the most recent here, 2022 numbers, you see that in 2022 was the biggest year for central banks buying gold since 1967. And this is just what they admit or what's on the books. It's probably a lot more than this. But the biggest since 1967. So we're on the precipice of something very, very big. We've got new currencies being floated out from the IMF. There's talk of the Fed coin. There's just lots of talk of different monetary systems here that are going to be coming into play in preparation for the end of the US dollar. And we see what China's doing, trading outside the dollar with many different countries. The petrodollar is no more. It still exists, but it's been greatly diminished. And we've never seen this big of a decline in de-dollarization, countries going away from the dollar. And here in the U.S., a country where we barely manufacture anything, I mean, look at our trade deficit. We barely manufacture anything. What's it going to be like when the rest of the world no longer thinks the dollar is the mighty dollar? So it's going to get scary. It's going to get real. It's going to get serious, and it's already serious for a lot of people when you look at the level of savings that people have. We're, way below financial crisis levels right now as consumers. How much people have in their banks. Uh, Non-necessary spending is really slowed down. Therefore, we're seeing tons of layoffs. Let's talk about Best Buy. Best Buy layoffs hundreds of employees as shopping trends shift. So what I see in a lot of these articles, and this one's out of CNBC, what I see though out of a lot of these articles is excuses, right? So there's awful layoff numbers, hundreds, sometimes thousands, but it's always an excuse in the background. Why are they trying to make excuses? Here's the excuse for this one. People are shopping online. So all of a sudden Best Buy has to lay off a big portion of their staff. Well, let's see. I think back, and I was in my Amazon account the other day, and I went back, how you can see your purchase history. I went back, and my oldest transaction was like 2002. So people have been buying things online. Amazon's been around for 20 plus years. People have been buying things online for decades, but yet the excuse I see with these layoffs is, oh, everybody's shopping online now, so they had to lay off a bunch of people. Well, of course people are shopping online. People have been shopping online for 20 years. So just in the past couple months, people started shopping online, so therefore you see these huge layoffs. It's absolute nonsense. But that's what we see out of a lot of these articles is excuses or trying to calm the fears about the economy, right? Because when people see these layoffs, the obvious reaction or the normal reaction would be, hey, what's going on? Why are we seeing layoffs 5 times this year in 2023 what they were in 2022, right? 5 times the number. So 2023 is massive. You're not really going to realize it probably until it's too late, unless you're really looking into the news like we do here. But let's talk about this other one here. More layoffs here. David's Bridal laying off 9,000 workers. So what's the excuse going to be here? Online shopping. So now all the wedding dress shoppers are going to buy online. They no longer want to buy the dress on and walk around and look in the mirror and see how it looks. Nope, everybody's going to buy online now. It's a new trend for wedding dresses, I guess. I mean, I'm joking, but I'm not, because that's the type of thing that we see with a lot of these layoff articles. They're trying to justify, that everything's fine, that this is normal, that this is just a shift online to online shopping. David's Bridal to lay off 9,000 workers, and we're just getting into wedding season. We're into the spring here, soon into summer. And now we see 9,000 layoffs here. So you let me know what you think about this. Maybe everybody's buying wedding dresses online. Maybe that's the new trend. Maybe I'm not up on the latest trend. Now, let's just say that it is true. Let's say that a lot of these layoffs are because people are now shopping online instead, or there's a big surge in people shopping online. Let's say that's true. That's also not very good news, because that means there's job losses regardless. So more people jobless, less people out spending money in the economy, which equals more job losses, because the less people that are spending, then less demand for workers. It's pretty simple. So regardless of the reasoning for the layoffs, it's not good, and it's going to lead to further pain in this economy and further contraction. We see banks tightening lending very significantly here. There's a recent article here, and this is out of Business Insider. A credit crunch has started as banks tighten lending by the most on record, and that's per Morgan Stanley. So banks are very unsure right now, and we've really yet to see a big correction in many assets right now. Housing, cars, not very big price drops yet, but we could be seeing big price drops going into the summer. And with this credit crunch happening right now, I expect the price declines to really start to accelerate. And I was one of the only channels, remember, I was one of the only channels saying that you're likely not going to see a housing crash or a vehicle price crash, because all the different types of lending that is being implemented to try to keep the bubbles inflated. And all the different news out there saying how everything's fine with the economy. There was an article I read the other day, 2 reports ago, saying the housing market has bottomed. The housing market's bottomed. I believe that was a Zillow economists saying the housing market has bottomed and that prices are going to start going up this year. So that's the type of thing that I think a lot of people see and they read it, and it makes them just very complacent and just go out and get the biggest loan possible to buy a home. But yeah, the biggest credit contraction on record. So obviously this has got to affect these bubble prices. So if you're thinking about buying a big ticket item, you might want to hold back, just like Jeff Bezos said back in the fall, don't buy any big ticket items. Maybe he saw what's happening right now with this tightening of the lending. Also, I'm seeing other articles how the banking crisis is over. The banking crisis has been solved, apparently. Well, the two banks that failed, Silicon Valley and Signature Bank, um, they are only number 1 and number 4 as far as the banks that have the most uninsured deposits. So we have number 2 and number 3 that have yet to fail. And then there's a list of top 20 banks that I just read through here earlier that that have a huge amount of uninsured deposits. Now, apparently everything's going to be backstopped. Everyone's going to be made whole. We have massive outflows from these banks, people not trusting the smaller and the regional and the local banks. Now, the deposits did tick up a little bit in the past week. I think a lot of that's because of tax returns, and people are putting their money into the banks simply because they have a little more money now because of the tax returns. But the crisis hasn't been solved by a long shot. In fact, if you listen to what Janet Yellen was saying, she's saying that there's likely not going to be any universal backstopping of the entire banking system. Only banks that are systemically important, or banks that, if they fail, are going to cause a risk of contagion and financial contagion spreading. So I would not be feeling like I wouldn't be feeling right now like any crisis is over. I still feel like we're at the beginning of this. I think it's going to get a lot worse. The big thing that's going to happen is when the Fed cuts rates, and that's when you're going to see prices explode. So how big of a correction will we see before that happens? Will prices drop enough to make affordability come back into many items? We'll have to see. I don't know what the planners are going to do here, but we do know that we better be on our toes and try to stay on top of all this, because we're headed into times now like we've never seen before in the history of this country. And we often, talk about other countries and collapses that have happened in other countries, hyperinflation, countries where people have wheelbarrows of money just to go buy a loaf of bread and a few items from the grocery store. And we say, oh, that can never happen here. Well, I hope it never happens here to that degree. But I can't guarantee it won't. And people out there like Peter Schiff are saying there's going to be a Great Depression. Robert Kiyosaki, some very experienced people making some pretty dire predictions, right? So people say I'm doom and gloom. You don't have to look very far for people predicting a depression. And I think it's going to be worse than the 1930s depression that we saw here in the United States, because people today are unprepared. We're already seeing just massive chaos unfolding in many cities right now, and we haven't even entered the full stride of this economic collapse yet. So keep stacking, folks, and we're going to stay on top of the news for you. If you like what we talk about, please give us a thumbs up and a subscribe. Help this channel stay operational. Share these videos, please, and come back for more. If you like what we talk about here, it really helps out. Thanks, everybody, for being here.